pull the ego away from the decision-making process. I've had lots of decisions that were the wrong decision because I was solving for my ego and not for what my heart actually desired in the long term. What if there's rubies, and I like rubies, and I like having rubies and gold and some diamonds, and why would I just want gold? If you want to be successful, in my opinion, figure out how to make other people be successful.
All right, welcome everyone to this episode of Build Stuff, Be Kind podcast. We have the incredible pleasure of chatting with Cortland, Brady, a 5-time founder, entrepreneur, builder of multiple businesses, 2-time exits, currently building, looks like a number of businesses. We'll get into kind of the details of that, but really excited to chat with you today, Cortland, and hear really about your story and your journey and what you are all about.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be on.
Yeah, you bet. You know, when I looked at the kind of details that you provided and your experience, and the thing that stood out to me most is you put one massive failure. So I figure we might as well just jump right. I've had many a failure in my life. So I think a good place to start is let's dissect that a little bit. What is this one massive failure that you shared?
Yeah, I raised a bunch of capital, hired a team, fired the team, gave back the original investment, and took a bath on a 6-figure loss because I didn't want the investors who were good friends to not get their money back. So they didn't get a return, but they didn't lose their money. But I lost a ton and lost the team. So that's it in a nutshell.
Wow. How long ago was that?
That was 8 months ago. So fairly recent.
So recent. Dang.
Fairly recent.
I don't know what the full details, like how much of the details we want to go into, but what prompted, or was there something that like signaled like, oh, this isn't going to work out, or maybe a path that you just didn't want to go down that really made you make that decision? Or, you know, what prompted that, like, okay, we gotta back out of this?
Yeah. So, first, there's nothing confidential on the interview, so feel free to ask whatever you like and go as deep as you like.
Great.
So the background story is I started a company in 2017, and we built that up to about 60 employees. We now have team members in 10 different countries. We work with a few hundred banks throughout Canada and the US, appraising collateral, appraising assets. So buildings and construction equipment, manufacturing equipment for these banks because they own assets throughout the world. And we built this software in 2019 that allowed us to do these inspections remotely. And so what the competition did is they would receive a request from the bank. The bank would say, and the competition would then say, okay, we need to inspect 50 semi-trucks in Florida. Well, we don't have a person that's a mechanic in Florida, so we're going to fly somebody out there and inspect these trucks. Long turnaround time, varying degrees of quality because mechanics are regionally based, and these banks are lending to throughout the country and Canada and Mexico and Europe as well, and getting differing degrees of quality, differing turnaround times. And so we built this technology and said, similar to FaceTime and pre-COVID, there was no like Zoom calls weren't a big deal. I don't think people remember whatever side the tech we're using to do this.
Oh, for sure.
I'm guessing did it like everything has come out of this virtual world post-COVID. Yeah. So pre-COVID, it was pretty cutting edge. And we thought, what if we can figure out how to do remote inspections so that we can have a mechanic in their PJs in Southern Utah doing a video call with some Uber driver that we can pay a few bucks
Wow.
to in Florida and have a high degree of quality on that inspection. Then you can
Mm.
inspect an asset in New York, Florida, California, and Cancun all in the same day with the same mechanic or the
Mm.
same small group of mechanics that are all internally
Yeah.
trained, and return the reports back to the bank. So we built this technology, and it took a couple of years, and we called it Go Video. And it's one of the strategic differentiators in our business is that
Yeah.
we are, some other competitors have started building it, but it's so tricky there's no app download, there's no login. It's just
Mm.
browser to browser, peer to peer on any device. And so we built this technology, and fast forward to a year ago, I hired a president for that company. And I think entrepreneurs, you get to this point where you hit a certain amount of employees. For us, it was like 25. Well, yeah, 25 employees. Like, I have no idea what I'm doing. So I went and got not the education, but I surrounded myself with entrepreneurs, hired a business coach, got the consultants, read the
Yeah.
books over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got to another like break point of, we're still growing, but we're still not making any money. So I need somebody different. So hired an MBA who was just phenomenal, had gone and taken companies from where we were at to over 100 million in revenue. And
Mm.
that was the goal for us. So I brought this
Yeah.
guy on, and he came on as the president of the company with the intent to manage specific roles and me still be the CEO. And as time progressed, he kept taking more and more of my responsibilities, not like stealing them from me, but hey, Cord,
Yeah.
I could help with that. I could help with that.
Yeah.
And me seeing he's executing on these better than I am. So fast forward that to 8 months ago, we thought, man, we could really go and start another company, because the president, David, is running Aspen, and I can take this software, and there's some banks that would like to license our software. They don't necessarily want to work with us and have us perform
Mm.
the inspections, but they want their bankers to do these
Yeah.
virtual video calls. And so I went and raised $500,000. We hired the team, all the developers, and got 2.5 months down that road and realized there's just some key ingredients missing, part of which was my alignment with the vision of the company, which I think
Mm.
founders
Yep.
underestimate how they will change. And so had the conversation. Hey guys, I know we put our blood, sweat, and tears into this, but today is our last day, because every day we move forward, it's just
Mm.
costing more money. So
Yeah.
called up the investors, and that's no matter like what successes you've had in the past up to that point, building companies, hiring people, crushing goals, it doesn't matter. Like, I call those the fetal position in the shower
Mm.
moments,
Yes.
because regardless of what you've done up to that point, it all just goes out the window. You're like, I suck. I screwed this up so bad. Here's these people that have been overworked, underpaid
Mm.
for months and months, and here's this vision and this dream, and I've sold them on, because I'm their CEO and I'm telling the story, and the
Totally.
investors as well, to say, hey guys, we're done. And yeah, that was the
Dang.
big colossal failure.
Wow. I mean, so many thoughts running through my mind. I think going back in the process to hiring that president and leveling up and doing those things, and that kind of imposter, maybe it wasn't imposter syndrome, but that feeling like, okay, I need to level myself up. I need to have this growth. Was there something that triggered that decision, or that really drove you to push yourself to that next level?
Yeah, I think I'm a big proponent of meditation and
Mm.
self-awareness. And to say I'm a self-aware person is like, not, you can't say that, right? You can't say like I'm a humble person. That's just like
Yeah.
BS. Like in the fact
Unless
that
you're
you're
Gary
saying that
Vee.
means
If
you're
you're
not
Gary Vee, you
self-aware.
consider
So
yourself aware. Yeah.
I seek to be self-aware and to and pull the ego away from the decision-making process. I've had lots of decisions that were the wrong decision because I was solving for my ego and not for what my heart actually desired in the long term. And I think there's owners and there's operators. And I always go back to this analogy of Columbus. And I don't know if he sailed for Portugal or Spain. I don't even know if they know. They probably both claim that he sailed for them. But I think that you have this idea of, as a founder, you're Columbus and the king, like right when you start your company.
Totally.
But then you get to a point where you realize I have some responsibilities as the sovereign ruler of this nation that I need to be here doing some certain things. But no one knows who the king of Spain or Portugal was in 1492. The whole world knows who Christopher Columbus was. And so what happens is entrepreneurs want to be the sovereign king, run the nation, and have the power. Like Columbus died poor, but they also want to have the fame and the glory and be remembered, the ego-driven thing of I discovered this new thing. And so I think there comes a point where there's divergence, right? You've created a kingdom and you also have the next thing you want to explore, and you have to decide, which one do I want? It's very, very rare that an entrepreneur can go and be a Jeff Bezos and scale a company from garage to Fortune 1 or Fortune 5.
Yeah.
That doesn't often happen because we're wired for starts or wired for scale.
Yeah.
And you have entrepreneurs that can't scale their business because when it starts getting traction, they start the next thing. That's how I'm wired.
Yeah.
And you have operators like the president of my company that is wired for scale from 3 million to 100 or 5 to 100 million. And that was a decision-making change for me. I knew what I wanted, and I wanted Aspen to continue to exist, and I wanted to go and conquer the new land. That's what was attractive.
The next thing. Yeah, I think that's such a compelling point you make of you're an entrepreneur, you see problems, you want to create solutions, you see opportunities, you want to create those opportunities, you want to find that next thing. And someone, I can't even remember where I heard it or who shared it with me, but this idea of like, in your business, you start digging for gold and you find it, you dig in this hole and you find some gold. And instead of just like, let's keep digging down here, it's like, well, what if there's some more gold over here? Let's start digging over here. And that's
what if there's rubies?
Right, and
I like rubies, and I like having rubies and gold and some diamonds. And why would I just want gold?
100%, dude. It's a challenge that I think all entrepreneurs kind of have to come to terms with, or find that balance, or build the right team around them. So,
and the money is to be made in after you find the gold going deep. And that's why you have so many entrepreneurs bouncing from thing to thing to thing that never actually they never made it because they bounced. But that's in our nature. That's how we were able to find the gold in the first place. And so that was my solution to be able to bounce to the next thing, was to find the guy who does know how to go 3 miles deep when I went 50 feet.
Yeah. So what I'm going to ask a few questions about it, but what was your overall takeaway from that experience? What do you feel like is the biggest thing you learned over these last 8 months, or I guess since starting at maybe the last 12 months of leading up to that decision and to where we are today?
Yeah, I think 2 really big takeaways. The first one is it's okay to exist temporarily in a purposeless state. And as entrepreneurs and driven people who demand a lot of clarity of themselves and their future selves, like I read my letter to myself that my future self wrote to me, and I read it every single morning because I know exactly what my life is going to look like. And when you get something, for me, it was bringing somebody on that could do a bunch of the stuff that I could do. I found myself in this state of, I'm not needed. This looks different, even though it's a great different, right? Who
Totally.
wouldn't want to have a company that they own the majority of that's being ran by somebody else who's better at it than you are? Like, it's the ideal
Totally.
situation.
Yep.
But I think it's the same advice that I've heard with people when they exit, when they say, what do you like, what's the best advice you can give me for investing this money? I just had a 50 million, 100 million, $200 million
Mm-hmm.
exit. And they say, let it sit in your bank account for a year. Do not touch it.
Mm.
And I think there is some wisdom in that to say, I don't know what the
Dang.
next step looks like, but my personality, I like went inward. I had to find, not inward in a good way, but like inward of like
Yeah.
grumpy, reclusive, moody, all of those things,
Mm.
because I was no longer needed and didn't know what was next. And so that's the first part. And it
Dang.
segues into the second part, which was me talking to people and say, hey guys, I don't know what's next for me. What are some opportunities? And them saying, well, you should go do this. And
Mm.
that's not me dismissing accountability for my choice to go and
No,
start this
totally.
thing. Cause I own that. It was my decision, and I was the
Mm-hmm.
guy. So full ownership of that decision and the outcomes that came from
Mm-hmm.
that
Yeah.
decision. However, it was prompted by me asking, because I didn't have clarity, and I usually make decisions. We're entrepreneurs because we feel pulled and drawn to something, and there wasn't anything I
Yeah.
felt pulled or drawn to. I listened to what other people said I should be
Mm.
pulled to, and went down that road. And when I mentioned it at the beginning of the podcast that there was something misaligned with me and the vision of the company, I don't wake up. I love people. I'm so stoked about people, and I want
Mm-hmm.
to figure out how to democratize success and make everyone in the world successful. So it's not just the few. Like,
Love that.
whoever actually wants it, I want them to have the ability to get it. And there's millions or billions of people who don't have the opportunities and experiences that I've received to
Mm.
be where I'm at, to be on a podcast like this. Like, I did some stuff, but I had so many opportunities that were presented to me that allowed me to
Yeah.
do those things.
Totally.
What I'm not driven and motivated to is, how do I digitize assets faster
Mm.
and develop this technology and
Yeah.
allow banks to decrease their turnaround time on lending? It doesn't wake me up every morning. Some people it
Yeah.
does, and that's fine.
Yep.
But I think those are my two takeaways. Exist in the uncertainty and be okay
Mm.
with that and lean into that. And then listen to what your gut says. Don't take advice.
Dang. That's such powerful insight of that pause. I think is such a hard. I found myself in a similar spot, and now thinking back, wish I had that exact advice of like, we sold our brand about 2 years ago, and like I think I lasted a month, maybe 6 weeks at home, and then got an office at we work here, and just like I got to figure out something. I got to move. I got to jump in on something, and I think giving space for that is such an important move to reconcile as an entrepreneur, as someone who's always looking for that next thing or trying to push yourself. What?
I think one thing you
Yeah, go
said
ahead.
sparked a thought in me, which is, for everything there's a time and a season,
Mm,
and
yes.
the ebbs and flows of life. And as you said that, like probably rushing is how I would have described. Like, I rushed to
Mm,
solve for the anxiety that I was feeling, and solving for
yeah.
emotions is almost always the wrong thing to solve for.
Yep.
And then something happens when you get a business to a level like this is what you said reminded me of this. When you get a business to a certain level, when you start the business, for the first 3 years, I literally took $0 out, not a
Yeah.
cent in
Mm-hmm.
distributions or salary, nothing. Like, it's the
Yeah.
story that every entrepreneur tells. And then you
Yeah.
have this, and you're also putting in 80-hour weeks and
Yep.
pushing hundreds of thousands of dollars into the business.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's something that switches, which is you're putting in less hours because you've found the people that are more capable to you, and you're actually making money. And there's this huge internal struggle to exist in this new space.
Yeah.
But that's the next season. And it's similar. An analogy I heard recently is, can you imagine, like, you're the farmer, you plant something, and then you wait all this time, and then it produces, and you weed it, you nourish it, and it produces this fruit, and you feel so bad that it produced this fruit. Like, you're so guilty that you watered it and like all of the
Totally
stuff.
struggled. Yeah.
Yes, but it's just, I think it's leaning into the
Mm.
season and loving,
Yeah.
I'm in grind season. I'm in harvest season now, and I'm
Yeah.
going to be in grind season again, and loving those seasons and being okay with whatever one you're in.
Yeah. That's huge. What do you feel like you learned about yourself the most through that?
I think I learned that I spent a really hard truth is what I learned. I spent 7 years building this company in an attempt to feel enough and feel accomplished. And I got to a checkpoint. It's not the finish line. There's never a finish line. But
Yeah.
I got to a checkpoint that I had been wanting since I could remember, since I was a little kid, this point of what you call financial freedom. And I realized I was the exact same person. I had all the same insecurities. I had all the same demons. I had everything exact, all the same quirks, all the same.
Yep.
Everything was the same. Nothing was different about my life. And that checkpoint was underwhelming. And so
Mm.
I hate I've always hated enjoy the journey. Um, so I won't say you need to enjoy what you're doing. And I also won't say only do what you're passionate about, because having gone through that grind now allows me to do every single day what I'm passionate
Yeah.
about. I haven't finished that learning. That's just the first
Yeah.
step that I need to continue to chew on to find the conclusions that are coming from that, because I don't know if I would have done it differently, but I did
Yeah.
learn that about myself.
Yeah. I've constantly had this ongoing relationship with the idea of perspective. I think my background's in photography and videography, and so looking through a lens and just how you frame a great photo, depends on the perspective you have and what you're willing to, you know, maneuver through to capture an image in a way that speaks to something, right? Um, I'm also, um, a member of the LDS faith and have a strong relationship with God and the parallels of perspective there, his ultimate perspective, and then also going through challenges and things in business. There's, um, even talking about battle and warfare, if you have higher ground and higher perspective, you can see things in a different way and attack them, uh, you know, in a way that's more beneficial. What perspective do you think you'll take forward from this experience, or how will you utilize this knowledge and increased perspective that you've gained through this process, uh, going forward in this business or in future businesses?
I hope to not make similar mistakes. I think the perspective that I take away is, in addition to the things that we've talked about, is the phrase, what got you here is not going to get you there. I've just come to
Mm.
learn that I can't ever be stagnant. That's probably the new perspective. It's like I never got it. I never nailed it. I never have the perfect routine, have the perfect business model. And to love love that change. Instead of before, I think the perspective was get to this point and then you're
Mm.
good. You're in this state
And they'll
of
all come to
nirvana.
you.
Yeah,
Yep.
you've done the meditation hours, and now you have the financial aspect there. Like you're
Yep.
mindful and financially secure, and that is just not true. Like it doesn't.
Mm.
Um, you still only have the present moment and have to deal with everything that the present moment holds.
Yeah, I love that. So let's thank you for sharing that experience and that process, and we'll probably still kind of build on that. But I want to shift gears into the successes and the wins and the knowledge, and really dive into, all the decisions that got you to this point where you could choose a path that led to this ultimate failure, but all the things that are still, this business is still successful, it's still growing. You've founded 5 businesses, you've had multiple exits. I want to talk about the core values that really have gotten you to where the successes are, where the wins are, where the growth of even, getting to the point of hiring. A lot of entrepreneurs can't even make that decision of, hey, I should hire someone who's better and more skilled. And they a lot of times we want control, or we think we're better at everything than anyone else can ever possibly be. So let's jump in on the win side and on the successes of the businesses that you've built. What has motivated you and what's driven you most to accomplish the success that you've had?
I want to make other people successful. I want to create 50 millionaires. I also
I
want to
love
make
that.
it heap of money at the same time, but
Mm-hmm.
they're for sure mutually inclusive, not exclusive.
Yes. What do you think is why? What drives you to really bless the lives of others through the things that you're building?
I've been given opportunities and experiences that otherwise would not have been available if people wouldn't have provided them to me. And
Mm.
it's made all the difference in my life. And it felt like a duty first when I realized that I needed to give back. And now it feels like a privilege because you can't give without receiving more. And
Yeah.
I mean, I have a couple partners. There's president, and he's phenomenal, and his right hand man, and my co-host on our podcast, which we love to have you on, by the way, is
Love to. Let's do it.
is our head of growth. And recently we were talking. I was like, dude, the only thing better at an exit than going and buying a Porsche is if you can go and buy a Porsche with a couple of your other buddies, because they also
No
like
doubt.
if you have 100,
Totally.
there's this point of diminishing returns where money is
Yeah.
not going to serve you. So
Yeah. Yeah. Let's
that's
win
the why.
together. No doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. I feel very, a lot. We're just meeting today on this podcast, but I've gotten chills multiple times of just your presence and the way that you speak to this opportunity you have, this path that you have to create opportunity. I feel very similar in that so many opportunities and blessings and skill sets that I have that drive me to create opportunities for others. When you talk about, having this win with friends or with founders or partners, how do you make sure that you align yourself with the right people, the people who are aligned with your core values, that want to win together, that aren't, the person that wants to maybe extract from the business or extract from what you are creating for themselves? Do you have structure around hiring and your team building and the partners you bring in, or is it something you really lean on your intuition and your gut to find those people?
Both. Hiring is the number one most important metric for any entrepreneur in any business is what percent of their core team are A players, meaning they're high
Mm,
performers and embody the core values. You give me any other
mhm,
metric, like what's your gross profit, what's your delivery time, what's your error rate, all of those don't matter to any degree until you've got the right people in the right
mm,
seats moving the company forward. So hiring is, in my opinion, the most important thing. And I think it has to be for me because I think I'm smart enough. I'm never the smartest guy in the room. I'm smart enough and I'm extremely hardworking. So because I'm not this quant that can see the future and analyze the markets and develop this technology that's going to go be revolutionary, I have to surround myself with people who can do those things. Um,
totally.
so yes, there's a process, and then there's also intuition. I always listen to my
Mm.
intuition. Whenever anyone gives you advice, like a Frankenstein advice from mentors and board members, like paste it all together and discard the stuff that doesn't fit your intuition. So
Yeah.
our hiring process comes from the book Who, which talks about top
Mm,
grading, and it's 6 pages of in-depth questions. I have um, Carlos, who's our head of growth, I knew extremely well and got to see in a different setting before I hired him.
mm,
So he didn't go through that process.
yeah.
The president went through about 12 hours of interviews and question asking. And
Mm,
then this new company that I started, I had a 5 hour single meeting. Like in the day, we went from like 11 to 4 with no breaks.
wow.
We go get a drink, but no lunch or anything,
Yeah.
and went through the same structure. And the structure is to first ask a couple really deep questions. So we start out, and it goes through this in the book Who.
Mm,
We could say from age 0 to 18, what were the highs and lows of life? Like kind of get into somebody with
mm,
that. And then from age
yeah.
0 to 18, what were the experiences and who were the people that shaped how you see the world? Like you start getting into who they are as a
Wow.
person.
Totally.
And then you go through every single job and you ask the same set of questions, which I won't go through all the questions, but things like,
Hmm.
tell me about your biggest win, your biggest loss, knowing what you know now. What would you do differently? Who is your manager? Can I
Mm,
contact them? What will they say your biggest strength and your biggest weaknesses are? What was your boss's biggest strength and what was their biggest weakness? Why did you leave this job? How would you rate yourself
mm,
scale of 1 to 10? And as you do that for every single job that they've had, you come back and you see little patterns of like, oh, they thought all of their bosses were really difficult to work with, or
totally.
they thought all of their bosses were fantastic leaders and communicators and gave really good feedback. And you see these patterns like, oh, those are the things that I'm going to want in my business. And I judge that person based on the skills that they're going to bring to the table, because you could hire somebody that is a great fit on a core values perspective, but they're just in the wrong role because they don't have the skills and
Yeah.
you didn't test them for the skills. So
Totally.
what's the skill set? And then what's the core values? And we have 4 core values: integrity, extreme ownership, seek discomfort, and invest in others. And we compare them against those 4.
Mm,
And the most important rule with hiring is if by the end of the whole process, if they are not a heck yeah, then they're a no. So if
mm.
they're like, yeah, how was
Love
it?
that.
Like, oh yeah, they're pretty good, or like they're good,
Totally.
but I'm going to look at this other candidate. Like, no, no,
Yeah.
no. We're not looking at any other candidate. If they're not good enough to hire as a heck yeah, like you would aggressively move towards hiring this person, then we're not going to hire them.
Dang.
And even if we hire people for the
Yeah.
same job, if they're heck yeahs, I'll hire both of them. Like, give me
Cool.
more A players in the company.
Yeah. I love that. How did you arrive on those four core values? Was that you and team, or what was the process of like landing on those four core values?
I'm a big reader, so all my stuff is not original. It just comes from,
No, it's
like, there's a
good.
book called Scaling Up, great book.
Hmm.
It talks about how you pick your core values and how you judge against them.
Nice.
And it talks about how core values are not aspirational. It can't say we want to build stuff or
Mm,
we want to be
yeah.
kind. And so we're going to set this as a core value and go there. The process that we went through is we asked everyone to write down who the 5 people were if they were going to go start an Aspen, so our company is called Aspen. If we were going to go
Mm-hmm.
move 5 of our people to Australia and start a company, which 5 people in the company would
Mm-hmm.
they take? And then we asked them to list all of the core values of those people. And then we took all of those core values and put them on a whiteboard and then started grouping them of like, what is
Dang.
us? And there's a brand called Seek Discomfort. So we're
Oh,
like, yeah, everyone, a couple people in our company wore that brand, loved it.
love
So that
that.
was one of them
Yeah.
that embodied. And then we had Extreme Ownership. We love that book. And so that's like our company book. We had already had it as our company book. So we put it up there.
So
And
good. I
that's
actually
how
just
we came up with this.
listened to the audiobook. So good. Um, yeah, that's just that process of involving the team, and I think is such a beneficial way to arrive on those core values, because now they're not just words. Now it's not just like I feel bought in to them more because of that process. And I'm sure, team members and people that come in, like, this isn't just random words that we arrived on. There's a process and a lot of thought and energy and discovery put into choosing these core values.
And I love that you
Uh,
talk about core values and culture, because the phrase culture eats strategy for breakfast has
mm,
proven to be true in my experience. And so we've put things in place where we have weekly one-on-ones with the managers and
mm,
they're asked, what's your self-assessment on these 4 core values, and quarterly reviews where they're bonused against those things. And then we have 4 core values. There's 4 quarters in the year. So we'll do 1 core value every single quarter. The invest in
nice.
others we always do in Q4 because it's around the holiday season. And
Yeah,
so
I
it's
love
like
that.
it overlays perfectly and we get people stoked. And what we did this last quarter around
Mm,
Christmas time is we did bonuses, but we made them a little bit smaller and made up for it in a gift card that they were responsible to spend on a charity of their choice and then share that giving that they did. And we got these
mm,
stories back because we have people in 10
that's
different
so,
countries. It's like, we went and bought a soccer ball and a pump for these kids that were playing with like the most ratty soccer ball you've ever seen. And you
yeah.
should have seen how their faces lit up. Or we found like this
Oh my
puppy on the
gosh.
side of the road. We rescued it. We got it at shots. Like the extreme effects of value add to humans' lives, which
Dude.
ends up becoming coming all the way back from the team members to the customers to the investors,
Mm,
is can't be overstated.
yeah. Wow. That's incredible. Um, I love I love reinforcing core values or meaningful things in application and in learning, and applying that core value of uh, like passing along. Blanking on exactly your phrasing.
And
Um,
investing in others, invest in
yeah,
others.
investing in others and allowing people to embody that is such a cool way to reinforce that and build that in.
That
Um,
the other cool thing about it is that um, that wasn't my idea. Hired a person that was better at that stuff than me, that instituted it, and
mm,
then I got to see the effects of it. Like it wasn't, it's not court show. It's
yeah.
like the Aspen team of these phenomenal people. And it's not mine. It's like, I'm not doing it. It's a phenomenal team that's doing it and
Mm,
bringing about
I
all
love
these
that.
positive effects.
That's amazing. What are things that you are seeing as opportunities going forward, and continue to grow your culture and grow these team members, grow these businesses? What are some things you are really motivated to push forward or grow into or expand upon going forward?
So you're talking about me specifically or me in terms of Aspen?
I think you, in terms of Aspen and the business, but could also be personally, really, yeah. In I guess whatever comes to mind,
Either
whatever
one.
you
Okay.
feel like kind of pops into mind out of both of
Sure.
those.
Yeah. So I'll go on my personal business, my next step, because my
Mm,
involvement now in Aspen is very limited because I have the right people in the right seats,
cool.
and they're doing the right things. So what we talked about earlier is as an entrepreneur, we're always coming up with new stuff, new stuff, new stuff. We don't need new core values. We don't need
Mm.
new processes. We need to say these things so many times and ingrain them into every aspect of the business that we
Yeah.
become sick of saying them and sick of writing them. And that's when our people start to hear them and it actually
Mm.
breaks through the surface. So um, there's not like a new initiative. It's rinse, repeat
Yeah.
over and over and over and over again, because that's the winning. We already came up with the winning model. So we're not going to go and reinvent it. Not that we're not going to look for
Totally.
continuous improvement, but we don't need a fifth core value and we don't need to eliminate one and put another one in. That's who we are. As
Yeah.
far as me personally, I'm starting another company. That's what my MO is. And um, I think you get to be um, more choosy your next time around.
Hmm. Yeah.
When you're first starting off, it's kind of like, what resources can I actually find is available to me?
Mm.
And I think your next time you
Yeah.
don't have to, you have to have urgency, but um, I think you get to hire more missionaries versus mercenaries. I think when you're first
Mm.
starting off, you do actually, you might not be able to get to the beachhead without the mercenaries hired, but then once you're
Totally.
there, then you can say, I'm only going to bring on missionaries and
Mm.
hire people and be surrounded by people that are deeply passionate about the mission of this business.
Yeah.
So that's what would be next.
Yeah. Being more so, what I'm hearing is being more selective, being more intentional, being more really being able to live those core values from day one. And not to say that you weren't embodying those, when you first started Aspen, but there definitely is um, a space where you can allow yourself to position your decisions, position those core values in this next business that you're starting from the get go. That, yeah, when you're just like in the mode of, I always like describe it as like, grab a hammer and just start pounding on stuff. We're building a ship or we're building a house. Like, I don't know, just pick something up and you start hammering it out. But when you can really start to get those specialists and curate what that experience is going to be like, it's just a whole different, like you touched on multiple times, like that evolution, like you're in a different phase, a different stage. Now, how can you apply all these learnings and push forward in a new way, a new business? Is it a business adjacent to or completely outside of the value proposition that Aspen has?
Yeah, it will assist Aspen and it will be a B2B
Cool.
business. So its purpose is to align to align the collective need of an organization. So business needs certain things and individuals want and also need
Mm,
certain things. And when you
totally.
start a business, those two things are perfectly aligned. What the entrepreneur wants and needs and what the business wants and needs is perfectly aligned, because the
Totally.
entrepreneur owns 100% of the business. But then
Yeah.
you have, here's what the business needs on this line.
Mm,
And then you have somebody that has some personal desires that are
mm,
like that, not quite
yeah.
aligned. And then you have some other self-interest, or what is somebody naturally good at? And so you have
Yeah.
this organization with all these variables of people driven by what comes easy or what's going to move their
Mm,
personal self-interest forward, which is what they should be like. That's the reason we started a company. I started a company because I was self-interested. So there's no
mm,
problem with that.
yeah.
So the goal is to say, here's what the company needs. How do we change? How do we bend that line so all the people that are off can get equally as excited about exactly what the business needs and not
Mm,
just what they want? So that's the next business. It's a software consulting
cool.
uh, company. We started 40 days ago, and there's a
Oh,
couple
yeah.
couple hundred users using it, and so yeah, we're
Dang.
off to the races.
That's exciting. Well, congratulations. And I'm sure a lot of this experience and knowledge, I think when we have successes as well as failures, it's always an opportunity for learning and growth. And it's very clear that you take those opportunities to learn and grow, even in the midst of failure. Of what can I take from this and apply going forward, and um, that's a very valuable trait to have as an entrepreneur and as a builder of business, and wanting to have the success and sharing that success that you've spoken to. That's a very good trait to have for sure.
Well, thanks. That's kind of you.
So we have one final question that we ask all guests on the show. What role has kindness played in building your success?
Such an interesting question and such a great question. Have you read the book Radical Candor?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the premise of that book is that somebody that challenges directly, even if it's in an extremely unkind way, is liked more in the long term and does more good than somebody that cares deeply but does not speak directly to you, does not challenge you directly.
Yep.
So I will remove myself from the business standpoint. I think it's actually obviously those things aren't mutually exclusive. The ideal is to
Mm-hmm.
challenge directly and to care deeply.
Yeah.
I feel that if you can only do one, you should better challenge directly, or else your business may not be around to do either one. And hopefully you learn how to care deeply as well. To go back maybe 12 years, well, growing up, my dad was in a wheelchair. When I was 5 years old, he was an eye surgeon and broke his neck in a four-wheeling accident. And so for the rest of my life, he passed away 2 years ago. And for the rest of my life, it was normal routine to help my dad get out of bed, help him get back in bed. Like, he could use his arms, but not his hands. And he can speak and breathe. And so helping him eat, helping him brush his teeth, all of those things. And so life became precarious in that, like, that's not an easy way to live. And there's a
Can
lot of
imagine.
challenges that
Wow.
come along with it. For me, it was normal. That was just growing up. However, there were always times where, because there wasn't excess funds, that I would see people in my neighborhood. Somehow my parents figured out how to keep us living in great places with being surrounded by great people. But oftentimes those people or relatives are affluent and would go on trips and do things that we didn't have opportunities for. And so repeatedly, over and over and over again, I would have people that would reach out. That there's a guy in my neighborhood that I loved basketball. He'd wake up with me at 5 a.m. in the morning. We'd go to the gym together and shoot hoops because my dad couldn't do that. There's a family member that
Wow.
paid for me to go to Hawaii because all of my other cousins were going for a family vacation. There's a guy that paid for me to go to Hong Kong and visit him because of kindness. And
Wow.
I think how that is related to success is the greatest. If you want to be successful, in my opinion, figure out how to make other people be successful. And so if you can leverage the kindness that you've received and figure out how to pay it forward, you can do it for a selfish reason to start with, or an obligation like mine felt like, but then it will turn into a privilege and just fuel like this virtuous cycle of attempting to provide opportunities and experiences that will just pay you back. And it's not always money, but
Yeah.
it'll pay massive, massive dividends. So that's how I think it's had the greatest impact. Is it's given me drive to go and help bring others along that path of success.
Wow. That's incredible. Thank you for sharing that experience. I can only imagine the challenges of, your father's accident, um, and all the things that come with that, and then receiving that kindness from, sounds like a lot of, not necessarily strangers, but you know people who saw an opportunity to serve and acted on it, which is really cool.
And I know we're at time, but I think if could I add
Oh,
one more thing?
I've got, yep, I'm good. Let's go.
I, I think we underestimate. My life could have gone in a very, very different direction if people wouldn't have taken the time to say, "Hey, Court, do you want to go to lunch?" or to give me opportunities and those experiences. But because of what's been able to be done through Aspen, we're literally employing people in 10 different countries for rates that are far greater than they'd make in those countries. They're
Mm,
furthering their English skills. Some of them are moving to the US. Like the the small kindnesses. So I
wow.
love that it's build stuff, be kind. Like those small things that we do over a long horizon, if you can lengthen that and have a longer perspective, as you talked about, and say, what is this going to mean 100
Mm,
years out, is overwhelming the amount of good that some small actions of, hey, let me pay for you to go on this trip, or let me take you to lunch, or
totally.
let me make you feel heard when you're not feeling that way.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's such a powerful way to think about things. It's, I love that you brought up, going back to, the conversation around radical candor, and there's this idea of kindness is seen as a weakness, or you're too nice, or you're too, and I think there is that where it's like, uh, and this is part of the reason of having this podcast and this conversations, is like, for me, you know, growing up, always wanting to be kind and helpful, but also uh, falling back more on the, in radical candor, where she talks about like people, like holding back the feedback or the criticism, or because of wanting to be nice or not wanting to create confrontation. And I think that's a journey that I've been on, um, for the past 5 or 10 years, and continuing to push myself, is that like radical candor, that kind candor, that ability to be kind and supportive and helpful, but also be bold. And I have two boys, a 2 year old and a 4 year old, and wanting to find that balance to teach them that kindness is a strength, and kindness is a powerful thing that shouldn't be overlooked, or um, that we shouldn't aspire to have it. But there is a way to be bold and kind, to be candorous and kind, and to be direct and clear with who we are and what we stand for, and what, opportunities there are for ourselves and others to grow, but to do it in a way that is meaningful. And also that you touch on the simplicity. I've had a few people ask, like, build stuff, be kind of such like a, I kind of get it, but it's so like simple and basic. Like, couldn't you call it something a little more creative? Or, but it's like purposely simple. You know, if we can find those simple ways of building intentionally, and being kind with intention, I think it creates such a incredible path uh, in our lives.
Totally agree.
Hmm. Well, dude, this has been a real pleasure to chat with you, and to hear your story. Um, and now, knowing more about your personal story and your personal journey and how impactful those acts of kindness have been in your journey, that now that has compelled uh, you to create opportunities, to create wealth, to create success stories for others, is such a inspiring story. And I appreciate you sharing that with us today.
Thanks, Sean. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to. It was fun.
Yeah, man. Appreciate you. Well, thanks to everyone who's tuned in as well to this episode. We will link to all of Cortland's profiles, so you can find him on LinkedIn or on other platforms, and stay in touch and in tune with. I'm excited to follow along the journey on the next chapter, and all the things that you will continue to apply going forward.
Thanks, Sean. I do push out. One of my missions is, again, to create the 50 millionaires. So I push out entrepreneurial content every day. Not on every platform. LinkedIn's like once a week, but the other platforms, tips, tricks,
what's the
stories,
best
experiences.
What's the best platform for people to find you and follow along with that?
Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn.
Cool.
All of it's great. If I could be helpful for anyone, feel free to message me on there, and I will respond. I'll help out whatever I can.
Awesome. Appreciate you, dude. This has been a good time. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Sean.